Hey everyone, welcome back. Geely has teased a stunning new electric sedan, and this is actually quite exciting. I wrote an article about this on the Monument website. Check it out, link is in our description. So Geely is making a stride in electric vehicle market, and recently they released a teaser for a new EV, an electric sedan. It looks luxurious, it looks excellent. It is part of their plan to launch several vehicles underpinned by their SEA architecture. Now, the sleek machine promised to be an eye-catching addition to the Geely family with its edge design and a modern features. So Geely's upcoming mystery sedan will be taking the world by storm in 2023. Curiosity is piqued. Let's see what they have in store. So the teaser definitely looks very fascinating. I also have some additional information in this because Geely has their hands in so many different companies. So for one, they have their own brand, Geely, Lynk & Co, Volvo, Polestar, Proton, Lotus, and Smart. Geely and Mercedes, Daimler Mercedes, partly own a Smart car. I didn't always knew this, but I figured this out like 5-6 months ago, and it was good to know. But the next big company on the list is Aston Martin. And I wrote some additional news on that on our article, so we will be talking about that as well. And the similarities this vehicle, Geely's new Teased vehicle, has with other vehicles. I think personally, based on what I've seen so far, it looks similar to the Mercedes EQXX and the Porsche Taycan. I think there's definitely some similarities. At the same time, it does look very different. But you can see that it has those Rolls-Royce doors. So I think it's like, what are those doors? Is it butterfly doors? I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's got those Rolls-Royce doors that open parallel to each other. So they don't open like that. They open parallel to each other. So that's dope. So Geely Open Group extensive portfolio includes brands like Volvo, Polestar, one of our favorite, Lynk & Co, Zeekr, Proton, and Lotus. Lotus is a big one as well, and they're introducing their SUV, their first SUV. They said at the same time that Ferrari decided to come out with an SUV. By the way, we also made a new article on Ferrari. So Ferrari has filed a new patent, and basically this is to protect against their idea for electric engine noise, taking the noise that the electric motor makes and amplifying that noise. And of course, Dodge did this a few months back. Dodge did this, was it last CEX, I believe? Ferrari will be coming out with their first electric vehicle in 2025, so 3 years away. So got that to look forward to. But hey, check out that article as well. The company Geely also stake in Smart and Aston Martin. So yes, Geely do have a stake in Aston Martin, but they have bigger ambitions for Aston Martin. They want to buy a bigger percentage of the company. It's a very interesting proposition. I remember a time when Aston Martin shares were much cheaper than it is right now. But it looks like a lot of people have interest in that company, including Mercedes. Mercedes has a large amount of shares in Aston Martin as well. But it doesn't seem like Mercedes is willing to let go. It doesn't really seem like a lot of companies are willing to let go. I completely understand. I remember when Mercedes sold their Tesla shares. Oh my, probably their biggest loss that I know of. They lost billions in that transaction because they owned about 10% of Tesla. 10% of Tesla at Tesla's high was over $100 billion. So I completely understand if Mercedes don't ever want to sell shares in a company ever again. I completely understand because they took a big loss on that Tesla deal. What Mercedes should be doing while Tesla is cheap, buying to Tesla again, because Tesla is going to be the next Apple. They will be a $2 trillion company, 3 trillion, 4 trillion, 5 trillion possibly. So the teaser image for Geely News electric car, it shows off the general design. So I actually posted a video right there, and let's just check it out really quickly. So this is what we can expect. Looks very interesting. Look at the lights, look at those lights. Those lights actually look very familiar, but I can't remember which car I've seen those lights on. I just can't remember, but they do look very familiar. But wow, yeah, it looks very aerodynamic as well. Have you noticed? Very aerodynamic. So on the Aston Martin news, Aston Martin chairman has increased his stake in the company in order to ward off advances from Geely. So That's Lawrence Stroll, I believe. I think he's been buying more shares out of Aston Martin simply to protect against a possible hostile takeover from Geely. Now, the move is reportedly intended to protect the luxury British car maker from a possible hostile takeover by the Chinese automotive group. In October, Geely bought 7.6% stake in Aston Martin for 66 million. I didn't know it was. I knew Aston Martin was dead cheap and undervalued, but I didn't know it was that undervalued. So basically, what you're telling me is that Aston Martin, when I was writing this, I couldn't believe it, because what I realized was that Aston Martin at the time must have been valued under 1 billion. That's insane, right? I mean, I know they're not the biggest supercar maker right now. They're not doing the best, but seriously, that's dead cheap. So CEO Li Shifu has expressed some of his interest in increasing this to 10%. And with Aston Martin's current low share price, it could be a good time. It's a great time. The share price is still low. So it looks like this is the Aston Martin Lagunda Global Holding, and it's just at 1.449 billion. So approximately 1.5 billion in valuation. Yeah, still dead cheap. Now, the Aston Martin share on the UK stock market, I believe it's this one, and I think this is in British pounds, but it's not actually $167. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think it's 166 pounds. Yeah, I think it's more like £1.66. It's weird how this happens, but I remember looking at this and getting really confused a few years ago when I was looking to invest in Aston Martin. But the real reason why I'm not invested in Aston Martin is because I've seen bigger opportunities out there, better opportunities. So Geely's current stake in Aston Martin is not as large as the Saudi Public Investment Fund at 18.7% and Mercedes-Benz 9.7%. Now in July, the Atlas Consortium, which consists of Geely and Invest Industrial, offered a staggering 1.3 billion injection into Aston Martin, but their proposal was instantly rejected by the British sport car maker board, who declared that there is no platform for future discussion. So they're not interested in selling. But if Geely and an investment partner has 1.3 billion to invest in Aston Martin, well, they can just buy it hostile takeover. So I'm not too sure why they're being stopped from buying the shares in a hostile takeover, because assuming that the only way that's possible is if there's not enough available shares on the open market. But truth to be told, I don't think Geely is going to give up on this one. I think they know that Aston Martin is a prime, very vulnerable. Aston Martin is very vulnerable, and once the market dips, it would be a perfect time for Geely to buy. I think Geely will buy in a hostile takeover. They will accumulate more shares, and eventually they will have to be offered a board seat. In fact, at 7.6% in ownership, I think they should already have a board seat and votes. So once they continue to increase it, I think it's inevitable. Given where Aston Martin is, I think it's inevitable for a bigger automaker to buy Aston Martin. It happens to all the car brands. When their value drops, they get bought out by a bigger company. So I think what Aston Martin is doing is delaying this, but they can't delay it for too long. The market is not going crazy about Aston Martin these days. It's all about McLarens, Ferraris, Lambos, but Aston Martin isn't the cool car anymore. So Aston Martin really needs to step up their game if they want to remain. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.